Everyone is talking about and praising the new spy thriller Black Bag, and the real question is it really that good? Let's talk about it. But as always, before we get started, if you're new here, my name is Aaron and I talk all things movies and TV, but really mostly movies. So if you're into that sort of thing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me. It would be greatly appreciated. And of course, if you've already seen the movie, let me know your thoughts on it down below in the comments. But without further ado, let's talk about Black Bag. So this is a movie that really wasn't on my radar for this year. I think I heard about it for the first time like a month ago, and I decided to go see it because, well, I've been hearing really good things about it. And this is the latest movie from director Steven Soderbergh, and in this we follow Michael Fassbender, who plays a spy, but once his wife, who is also a spy and is played by Cate Blanchett, is suspected of being a leak in the organization and a dangerous weapon could potentially be released, he begins to investigate her. Jumping right into the good, and the first thing I have here is, of course, our two main stars of this film, Michael Fassbender and Cate Blanchett. They played the main couple in this movie, and they were phenomenal, to say the least. Their relationship was very much the core of this film, and if that relationship didn't work and it didn't feel real and believable, then this movie as a whole simply just wouldn't have worked at all. But when you have actors like Michael Fassbender and Cate Blanchett in those roles, it's pretty hard to mess that up. But with that said, they were not the only ones who did a good job in this movie. This entire cast really brought their A game. We had Regé-Jean Page from Bridgerton in there, Naomi Harris, even Pierce Bronson, who played like the chief of this spy organization. And I'm not gonna lie, every time I saw him on screen, I couldn't help but think that his character was essentially what would happen if an older James Bond started a spy agency. We also had Tom Burke and Marissa Abella, who also did a good job, but anyways, everyone did a really good job with their characters in this thing, and that kind of brings me to the next thing that I really like about this film, and that is the characters. Now, since this movie quite literally had zero action, the characters in the dialogue had to do a lot of the work in order to keep you invested throughout this entire thing, and that's exactly what the characters did. Each of these characters had their own baggage, and none of them were perfect by any means. Plus, they were all spies, so they're all professional liars. And that just made it feel like you couldn't trust anyone at any point in this film. And that's what really kept you on your toes in this thing, of course, until we got that big reveal of who the leak was at the end of the movie. But there was probably a different moment in this movie for each character where I thought they were the leak, but then we would get to the next scene and I would think it was someone completely different. So that's just a testament just to how well this movie is made, because it truly keeps you guessing at every turn. And I think a big reason for that is because these characters were so interesting, and each and every one of these characters were capable of being the leak. There was no one that you could look at and be like, oh, I can rule that person out because of so-and-so. No, it was like, they could be the leak because of this, but then it could also be them because they said this. So it was just one of those movies where I was continuously guessing who could be the leak, and that is what kept you engaged and intrigued, not only on this story, but the characters as well. Moving on to the so-so, and the only thing I have here is the dialogue. Now, overall, I thought the dialogue was good in this film. It relies heavily on it, and I think it did its job, but I don't know if it's just me, but at times I found the dialogue kind of tough to understand and follow. Now, they all did have British accents in this, and this could just be a case of me being a dumb American, but there were moments in this film where I would hear what they said, but they wouldn't really explain what that meant, and that's where I found it tough to follow. And in a movie where, in my opinion, you have to pay attention to every scene because something important happens in every scene, I just wish they would have took a little bit more time to elaborate on those certain scenes that were tougher to understand and explain what that meant to the greater story. And finally, getting into the bad, and the first thing I have here is that, at least in my opinion, this is a very niche movie. This isn't your typical spy thriller that has tons of action scenes and awesome set pieces. It very much relies on its dialogue and its characters. So if that isn't your cup of tea, then I could see someone being like, man, this movie sucks, because it doesn't have those big action sequences literally at all, as I mentioned previously in this video. And I'll be honest, I do lean more towards the side of the spy movies that have those big action set pieces, like the Mission Impossible Impossible movies. Like, I love those movies, and every time a new one comes out, I'm going to watch it. There's a good chance I'm going to like it. But for this movie, it still worked for me, even though it didn't have those action sequences that I very much like in spy movies. So I guess this is one of those aspects of the film that's really more of a preference thing. If you like those movies that are a little bit more heavier in dialogue and focus more on the characters, then you'll probably love this movie. But if you like those spy thrillers with the big action sequences like your Mission Impossibles, then this one might not be the movie for you. However, if you do give it a chance, like I did, you may find yourself liking this one. And the last thing I have for the bad, and this may just be a me thing, or I could just be nitpicking this film at this point, but for me, as much as this movie kept you guessing every scene, I never really felt the suspense in this thing. And I think that has a lot to do with this movie's runtime. It was a lean 90-minute film, and it did not waste any time. And I am okay with that. But in turn, I do feel like this movie also didn't give itself enough time to really build that suspense to a point where I could feel it. Now, I was intrigued and interested throughout this entire movie, but that was more because I was kind of playing this little game of just trying to figure out who the leak was, instead of being anxious and worrying about what was going to happen next. But at the end of the day, this is still a really good movie that's led by its performances. The characters are interesting and will keep you engaged, and the plot will keep you guessing, even though it is tough to follow at times. But this is still a movie that I would recommend. Those are my thoughts on Black Bag. Be sure to let me know what you thought of the movie down in the comments, and as always, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, get your Eazy Apparel at shopeasyapparel.com. God bless, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.